strong start it off. Let's go. What a hot start to the road to 272 bets in 2023. We had a losing season last year. We had to get off to a strong start, and we go 11-5 plus 6.23 units to get the 2023 road to 272 bets started. Now, does it suck that we went 0-3 in primetime? Yes. Does it suck that we lost 2 straight games to end the week on Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football? Yes. But you're not going to find me complaining about an 11-5 record plus 6.23 units. We cashed our underdog of the week, Rams plus 200. Best bets went 4-1. Teaser of the week cashed. Ravens won to keep us alive in the survivor pool. We're hot. We're hot. Let's keep it rolling for week 2. Now, I do want to go over a couple of quick things before we get into the week 2 picks. Mainly my adventure to MetLife Stadium on Saturday night, which started off great. Showed up early, an hour and a half early. Love showing up to live events early. Had a couple beer. Had a Giant shirt on there, giving out Giant shirts to fans. I put it on, had money on them. I sprinkled a few prop bets on the Giants. Thought we were in for a great night. The weather on my phone was telling me the rain was going to hold off. And then the game started. The Giants had about 6-7 fantastic plays. The vibes are high. By the way, Queen Latifah had the greatest rendition of the national anthem I've ever heard. The lights were off. They had a huge American flag, fireworks going off. It was bananas. The vibes were high. I was high-fiving Giants fans. And then it started to downpour. And then the field goal was blocked, returned for a touchdown by the Cowboys. And then the Giants had another turnover where the Cowboys returned for the touchdown. And then before I knew it, we were halfway through the second quarter, and it was 26-0. Pouring rain out. I said, okay, if I'm going to stay, I need to go get a poncho. Tried to buy a poncho, waited in line for 15 minutes, and guess what? Oh, they're sold out. And rumors were that they were $50 each. Giants, MetLife Stadium, what are you guys doing? How do you not have enough ponchos to sell? What do you think is going to happen? You shouldn't even be selling them. You should have been giving them away. They're little plastic garbage bags, pretty much. Actually, that's ended up what I ended up getting. A very nice beer lady, a lady selling beer, gave me a garbage bag to wear, a clear garbage bag. I ripped a face hole in it, thought that was going to be good enough, and it was good enough for a few minutes, and then I got cocky with it. I tried to rip some armholes in the garbage bag as well so I could use my arms, and then it just basically fell apart. So I had to do something that I've never done at a live sporting event in my life, and that was leave the game early. Halfway through the second quarter, left 26-0. Now, if it wasn't raining, I would have sat through the whole thing, of course, but I'm not sitting through torrential rain to get soaked with no poncho to watch the Giants get their asses kicked by the Cowboys. I'm not doing that. Now, I will say, if I was a Giants fan or if that was a Falcons game, you got to sit through it. If you're a fan of the team, you got to take your licks. You got to suffer just like the team is suffering. That's part of being a fan. I did it myself last year. Then the Blue Jays lost 15-1 to the Angels in Toronto. I was there at the game. Watched every pitch. You got to do it. Respect to the Giants fans who did, because I came all the way home, 45-minute Uber ride back to my apartment in Manhattan, turned on the game and watched the last half because it was a comedy of errors. And respect to the Giants fans. I could hear you on TV, still at MetLife Stadium, sitting there in the pouring rain, booing your team as you should have. If there's ever been a team that's deserved to be booed by their own fans, it's the Giants on Sunday night. I think that was the biggest ass-kicking I've ever seen in an NFL game. It wasn't just the score. It was sacks. It was fumbles. It was turnovers. It was block kicks. It was everything. It was a complete disaster. I don't respect Giants fans who left the game because I wasn't the only one who left halfway through the second quarter. Waves of Giants fans were leaving. You got to stick through it, guys. You got to stick through it. I would have if I was a Giants fan or if that was a Falcons game. You just got to sit through it. You got to take your licks. But me being, a third-party observer, I think I was allowed to leave. And that's what I did. I left. Now, unfortunately, though, the Giants have to go up in my hated teams ranking. I chirped you all last season for being frauds, which you were. I then bought in. I thought you were going to take a nice step forward this year. I bet on you. I was wearing your shirt. I was pretending to be a Giants fan. And then I get treated to that. And, tickets at MetLife for a Sunday Night Football game, not cheap. Not cheap. So I'm down a couple $100 for a quarter and a half of football and then I left soaking wet and had to pay another $50-$60 for an Uber ride home. MetLife Stadium as a whole, shitty stadium. Food was bad. It's just kind of a big block of concrete. No character to that stadium whatsoever. It was after the vibes were so high after the national anthem in the first 6 plays of the game. I've never seen vibes go from so good to so bad. It was a disaster. So now, my top 5 most hated teams in the NFL. It now goes Patriots number 1, Saints number 2, Buccaneers number 3, Panthers number 4, and the Giants number 5. They've overtaken the Titans, who have fallen from the number 5 spot to the number 6 spot. I'm sorry, Giants fans, especially those of you who stayed around and booed your team in the pouring rain. I respect you, but now I'm down a couple $100. I'm pissed. I had a terrible experience. So you're in my most hated franchises list now. You're in my top 5. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. I will never forgive you for that experience. But it'll be funny. It'll probably be a funny story eventually. But, Sunday night sucked. It sucked. But we move on to week 2. Yeah, I do have bets locked in for every game. I'm recording this at 12:30 a.m. Just before I started recording, the line came out for Cowboys Jets. It moved from 3.5 for the Cowboys up to 7.5 now with Aaron Rodgers out. What a disaster. I know the Jets ended up coming back to win that game, but before that, I mean, if you're a New York sports fan, you just lived through, I guess still living through because it's not over, just a disastrous season by the Yankees. Mets disastrous season. You're pumped for the new season, and then the Giants lose 40-0 to the Cowboys, and then your star Hall of Fame quarterback that you just traded for in the offseason for the Jets gets hurt 4 plays in. Tough one. Tough year, tough week for New York sports fans. Ooh. By the way, Falcons 1-0. I'll talk about them more when we get to the game, but great week for me in football up until Sunday Night Football, but I'll take that memory out of my brain. I'll just try to focus on the 11-5 record. Falcons are 1-0. We're alive in Survivor. 3rd and 4th most picked teams lost. I'm excited for this week. It's a new season. I got a good feeling about this season. We've started off hot, so without any further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into the NFL Week 2 episode of the Bacon Bets podcast. Let's go.
I'm not a state. I'm a monster.
No, Lisa. The only monster here is the gambling monster that has enslaved your mother. I call him Gamblor, and it's time to snatch your mother from his neon claws.
All right, let's dive into our best bets for all 16 NFL Week 2 games. I do got to mention, by the way, those of you who have been longtime listeners of the Bacon Bets podcast and have listened to previous iterations of the Road to 272 Bets, no victory song this year, unfortunately. My rule in the past was if I hit double-digit wins in a week, I would play Hooked on a Feeling. Who is it? Who's the artist? Who's the band there? Hooked on a Feeling. Hooked on a Feeling. Blue Suede. Unfortunately, now that I've evolved to be on YouTube as well, I can't play music or else I will get pulled off. So, no victory song, unfortunately. Maybe I can come up with a victory song I can play, or I'll find some workaround for it. But as of right now, no victory song. Go ahead and play Hooked on a Feeling in the background to celebrate going 11-5. Sorry. I'll see if I can figure out a workaround for it. But let's dive into my best bets for week 2. Let's see if we can go 11-5 or at least hit double-digit wins again. Starting off Thursday Night Football, also, I'd like to win a primetime game now. 0-3 in primetime. 3 of my 5 losses were the primetime games. Not fun. Not fun when you lose a primetime game, because that's obviously the only game that you're watching at that time, so you'd like to win those. Didn't go well for me this week. Vikings-Eagles. Went against the Vikings last week, went on the Eagles, but this week I'm going to take the Vikings. I got them at +7, -110 against the Eagles here. There are some 6.5s out there, though, so if you want to bet the Vikings, take them at 7. Find a sports book that has them at 7. If you want to take the Eagles, then find a sports book that obviously has them at 6.5, because that is an extremely key number there, obviously. So I will take the Vikings +7. I know that they lost to the Buccaneers outright. I know that they got upset in that game, but I actually don't think they played all that bad. I think they had some bad, untimely turnovers that really cost them. But if you look at net yards per play, which is actually kind of ironic because the Vikings kind of got Vikinged. Last year, the Vikings won a ton of games like the Buccaneers won. Games where it was a one-score game, games where they mostly got outplayed, but kind of things bounced their way. And then, of course, as you know, irony would have it, as luck would have it, they kind of lost the same way that they won a lot of their games last year. A game that they outplayed, probably deserved to win, and then lost a one-score game. So, but if you actually look at the stats, if you look at net yards per play, yes, so now that we have stats to look at this season, just a 1 week sample size, but you're going to start hearing me say net yards per play. If you're a new listener, it's my favorite stat to start my handicapping process in football. It is the amount of yards gained per play on offense, and then you subtract the amount of yards given up per play on defense, and that you're left with is net yards per play. I say it all the time, but it's not the only thing you should look at because it doesn't take into consideration things like, obviously, strength of schedule is a big one. Things like red zone efficiency, third down conversion rate. It doesn't take into account strengths versus weaknesses, anything like that. But it's a very good starting point, and I think it is a good sign of generally how well a team performed. And I bring that up because the Vikings outgained the Buccaneers in week 1, 5.9 yards per play to 3.6 yards per play. So they had a net yards per play of 4.65, 2.3 plus 2.3. So even though they lost, they actually played pretty well. Their defense specifically played very well. They just got to stop the turnovers. And now they're a touchdown underdog to the Eagles. I think that's a little bit of an overreaction to some final scores. The Eagles did win and cover against the Patriots, but I didn't like what I saw from their defense. A pretty weaponless offense by the Patriots were able to move the ball pretty well for the most part against this Eagles defense. So with a touchdown spread, I'll take the points with Minnesota. Obviously, you're all probably screaming at me, Ian, you're going to back Kirk Cousins in primetime. Yes, I suppose I am. Will I live to regret it? That's very likely. It's possible. If the spread, I personally would set the Eagles at maybe a 5-point favorite, 4.5, 5. So I think we're getting a couple points of value here. I think a touchdown spread is kind of ridiculous. So I will take Vikings +7. If it's only at 6.5, then I guess I would still take the Vikings if I'm making the Eagles in my head a 5.5 point favorite, but I certainly don't like it as much. So try to find a 7 if you certainly can. I think most books, as of recording this right now, are at 7. I know a couple 6.5s are out there, though. So that's Thursday Night Football. Let's get into Sunday's games. It is Lions against the Seahawks. I will take the Detroit Lions -5.5 here against the Seattle Seahawks. Week 2, betting on week 2 of the NFL, a huge thing that you got to do, or at least my strategy for betting on week 2, is don't overreact to week 1 results. That is the motto of the week, is underreact. Underreact. Now, it doesn't mean that you should completely throw results from week 1, but you should still mostly stick to what your preseason evaluations were for these teams. So that is why I'm once again going to fade Seattle, just like I did last week with the Rams, because I'm not high on Seattle. Now, in this case, what happened in week 1 lined up with my preseason evaluation, so that's perfect. That checks both boxes, so why stray away from betting against the Seahawks? I set the Lions as 6.5 point favorites in this game. The Lions at 5.5, but it is moving the opposite direction. I got it -5.5 at -108 at, I think, FanDuel, and now I think I'm looking at FanDuel. It's -5.5 at -115. So even there's 6s out there. So you might want to get on this before it potentially goes to 6.5, because that's where I would have the spread. Now, if it is at 6.5, then I would like totals at 48.5, 49. I'd probably lean the under instead if the spread does get to 6.5. But if it stays at 5.5 or even 6, I like the Detroit Lions. My bet last week on the Rams wasn't just on the Rams, me expecting better things from them than a lot of other people. A big portion of that was as well that I was not high on the Seahawks, and they kind of proved me to be right. Geno Smith did not really play well. even though they have some all-star receivers. Couldn't get it done. And I will take the Lions coming off a little bit of a mini bye week. I was also impressed by the Lions defense. Lions defense was the worst in the NFL last year. They're not going to be the worst this year. Obviously much better. Now they did play against a Travis Kelce-less Kansas City Chiefs, but still, I generally liked what I saw from the Lions defense. Aiden Hutchinson is a beast. Their defensive backs are improved. I think they're now going to be an average to below average defense, which doesn't sound great, but that's much improved from being the worst defense. So I like the Lions here. I think they go 2-0 to start the season. I'll take a -5.5. I got it at -108. Once again, all these bets are tracked on BetStamp. When I lock in the bet, I submit it to BetStamp. So you can see my bets after the fact there, but they are all verified by BetStamp. So third-party app, I'm not making up these lines because sometimes you're going to see lines going to be a little bit different. Even by the time you listen to it, if you listen to it on Tuesday morning, lines might be slightly different than what I locked them in at on Monday night. Moving on to Game 3, it is the Chargers and the Titans. And I will take the Chargers -3, -110 in this one. Once again, just sticking to some preseason evaluations. That's the thing with week 2 and probably even week 3 a little bit. I'm not going to say anything too unique for the most part. It's going to be a lot of repeated things that I said heading into week 1. I'm not high on the Titans whatsoever, even though they covered in week 1 against the Saints. Their defense, terrible performance. They let the Saints get 5.5 yards per play in week 1. I thought the Saints kind of deserved to cover in that game. I thought the Titans were kind of lucky to be even in it. Now, the Chargers did their defense got exposed by the Dolphins, but we're talking about we can't bet against the Chargers and expect their defense to be as bad as they were in week 1. They're going from facing the Dolphins, who have, I think, one of the best offenses in the NFL, to Ryan Tannehill, who PFF ranked Ryan Tannehill as the 26th ranked quarterback in week 1. That was before Monday Night Football. I don't see the rankings from Monday Night Football. So heading into Monday Night Football, Ryan Tannehill was a 26th ranked quarterback. Of all these starting NFL Week 1 quarterbacks, ugly performance by him. As long as the Chargers can slow down the Titans' run game, I think they can win and cover in this game. So I'll take the Chargers -3, -110 against the Titans. Jaguars Chiefs, sneakily one of the best games of the week. Now, this game, as of Monday morning, was 2.5 point spread in favor of the Chiefs. As of when I locked in my bet here tonight on Monday night, it moved to 3. So with it moving to the magic number of 3, I will take that with the Jacksonville Jaguars at home +3, -110. I thought the Jaguars played a lot better against the Colts than the final score indicated. Net yards per play, their mark was +0.9, one of the better marks in week 1. Trevor Lawrence was the 3rd highest ranked quarterback according to PFF.com. Only Matt Stafford and Tua Tagovailoa were ranked higher than Trevor Lawrence. That adds up with my preseason expectations of the Jaguars, so we're checking both boxes there. I have high expectations for the Jaguars heading into the season. They delivered in week 1. Now they're getting 3 points at home to the Chiefs. Now, obviously, I think this line, based on this line, Travis Kelce is going to play. If he gets ruled out this game, then we're going to be sitting pretty with the 3 point spread because it's probably going to move down pretty close to a pick 'em, probably Chiefs -1, -1.5, based on how the line moved against the Lions last week when Kelce was ruled out. But even if he plays, the Chiefs got to figure something out with the wide open position because Kadarius Toney was absolutely abysmal last week. I don't think I've ever seen a game as bad of a game by one receiver before, because not only was he dropping passes, he dropped a pass and basically handed it right to the Lions for a pick 6. So he gave the Lions points, and wasn't just him either. Jerick McKinnon, I think it was, dropped what would have been a pivotal first down in the red zone against the Lions. Sky Moore, I didn't think looked good out there. So that's going to be something to watch with the Chiefs this year. Now, they had a similar receiving core last year and still went on to win the Super Bowl, but they got to fix some things for sure. So, like I said, I was high on the Jaguars heading into the season. Week 1, they had a very good performance. I'll take the 3 points at home. Moving on to my Dirty Birds, who are 1-0. Now, my Falcons, I know a lot of people out there, they're trashing Desmond Ridder. I don't think that's warranted. I think this is exactly what I said the Falcons are going to do this year, and Desmond Ridder kind of did what they're going to expect him to do all year, and that's not give the game away. Be a game manager, because he actually had a pretty high completion percentage. I thought I had it written down here in my notes. I don't see it, but he completed most of his passes, but they just weren't for very many yards. Now, I will admit I wasn't able to actually watch the Falcons game on Sunday because I haven't yet signed up for NFL Sunday Ticket. I did watch Red Zone. This is an out-of-market game for me, obviously, so I wasn't actually able to watch it outside of what I saw in Red Zone. I will next week. I will be able to watch the game next week against the Packers. But Desmond Ridder completed 83.3% of passes, 115 yards for 1 touchdown. But that's what the Falcons are going to ask him to do, because they're going to be a run-first team, and their running backs, Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson, look fantastic. Their defense, not great, but a pretty solid outing by their defense as well. Bryce Young had a terrible game. So I'm actually encouraged by what I've seen from the Falcons in week 1. I know Drake London got 0 catches. I think Kyle Pitts only had 1, maybe 2 catches, so they were basically invisible. They'll get better as the season goes on, though. I think this offense will only get better. And then the Packers, by the way, I'm taking the Falcons. Plus 106 on the money line. The Packers, yes, blew out the Chicago Bears, but I actually thought that was more of an indication of a bad game from a bad Bears team than it was necessarily me being impressed by the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love threw for 245 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he was kind of the complete opposite of Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder, not many yards, but a high completion percentage. Jordan Love threw for 245 yards, but only completed just over 50% of his passes, and he graded just the 19th quarterback by PFF for week 1. So I'm not overreacting to the Packers win over the Bears. Some people now all of a sudden think they're contenders in the NFC. I don't think they are. I think they will show more of their true colors now against a tougher test in Atlanta. Also, don't forget, the Packers cannot stop the run. One of the worst run defenses last year, 28th in opponent yards per carry last year. They let the Bears average 4.2 yards per rush against them this past week, and now they have to take on a Falcons team who, as we know, as we've seen, as I've said, is going to be one of, if not the single best rushing team in the NFL in 2023. So I think the Falcons run the ball all over them. I think Jordan Love has issues with his Falcons defense, and I will take my Dirty Birds plus 106 against the Packers. Moving on to an AFC North matchup. It is the Ravens and Bengals, and I will take the Ravens. This is going to be one of my best bets of the week. Ravens plus 3.5, minus 110. The Ravens, 2 things I've said about both these teams heading into this year. I said the Ravens were going to win the AFC North. That was my AFC North prediction. And I said the Bengals were going to get off to a slow start, especially offensively, mostly because Joe Burrow, as we saw last year when he missed the preseason due to appendicitis, gets off to a slow start if he doesn't play in any preseason games. He's a guy who kind of needs a little bit of time to get going, and boy, oh boy, was that a bad start in week 1 this year after missing preseason due to the calf strain. So until I've seen the Bengals offense turn things around, I will bet against them this week and maybe even next week as well. And the Ravens, not really, kind of tough to take too much away from them because they did what they were supposed to do against a really bad Texans team. But I'm surprised that this spread is available over 3.5 points. I would have expected this to be like a 2.5 point spread under the magic number of 3. I set the Bengals personally as a 1.5 point favorite, probably at home. It's all the way up at 3.5. Love the Ravens plus 3.5. I did consider making them my upset pick. Unfortunately, I do have a couple of moneyline underdog picks. None of them are big odds, though, all less than 2-1, so I apologize. I considered making the Ravens my upset pick, but I just love it so much getting the 3.5 points that I'm just going to take the points. So Ravens plus 3.5, minus 110 against the Bengals. Moving on, I'm going to take a lot of small spreads this week. I will take the Bears plus 3, minus 110 against the Buccaneers. A general strategy I have when 2 terrible teams face off against each other is to take the team getting points if they're getting a field goal or more. That's the case in this scenario. I think these are 2 of the worst teams in the NFL. Even though I am generally higher on the Bucs than a lot of people, But actually, even though the Bucs upset the Vikings in week 1, actually, if I were to take anything away from that performance, is that they actually got significantly outplayed. As I talked about earlier when I was talking about the Vikings, Bucs minus 2.3 net yards per play against the Vikings, one of the worst in the NFL in week 1. So not good. Bears not good either, minus 1.1 net yards per play against the Packers. So you got a couple of bad teams. Let's take the field goal worth of points and see if Justin Fields can stir something up and at least keep it close here against this Buccaneers team. Don't really have too much more to say about this game. We'll get a better feel for just how bad both these teams are as the season goes on. But I will say, and maybe I'll look stupid, maybe the Bears will bounce back and end up being a playoff team. But one weekend of the season, my prediction of the Bears sucking is proving to be correct. The amount of people who thought DJ, just because they signed DJ Moore, they're going to be a contender this year. Justin Fields, at a lot of sportsbooks, had the most money of all players bet on him to win NFL MVP. Justin Fields sucks. He's not a good quarterback. People think, yes, can he run the football? Yes. Does he have a few electrifying highlights? Absolutely. But you have to be able to throw the ball at least a little bit at the NFL level to be a good quarterback, and he just can't throw the ball. Completed 64% of passes, 216 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. You can't say he doesn't have weapons anymore because y'all were talking about how great he's going to be now that he has DJ Moore. So now you can't go back on that. You can't use that excuse anymore because you already said that DJ Moore was going to make him a better quarterback. He stinks. He's not good. The Bears will be one of the worst teams in the NFL. They have the Panthers first round pick as well. So if one of those two teams finish last, which is a high possibility, they'll take Caleb Williams, and the Justin Fields era in Chicago will be over. Sorry. It is what it is. Moving on to the Raiders-Bills. Now, I bet this game before the game started because I just generally for Monday night, just to be fair, I will like to wait until after the game to lock in my bet, just in case something crazy happens like it did tonight with Jets Bills. But I love this line on the Raiders so much I did bet it beforehand. So I do apologize because this line has moved, but I did take Raiders plus 10 minus 110 against the Bills. It has since moved to 9 point spread, at least at DraftKings, which is the book that I'm looking at right now. Let me see if I can find, see if other books add up with that as well. I don't think it's posted anywhere else, but I will say I still like the Raiders at 9. I like the Raiders at 8.5 or more. So as long as it stays at the number of 9, if it dips down below 8.5, then I would rather bet on the under 48. But with the spread still at 9, I like that. I personally got it at plus 10. And this is not just because I'm not low on the Bills, because actually I locked this in before the disastrous performance by them on Monday Night Football. This is actually more than that, a bet on the Raiders. A lot of people thought the Raiders were going to be a bottom 5 team in the NFL. I don't think they will be. I don't think they're a playoff team. But I'm higher on the Raiders than most people, so I'm just sticking with that preseason evaluation, and I'm a Jimmy Garoppolo defender, always have been. He looked very good in week 1 against the Broncos, or at least good. Maybe not very good, but he looked good. They pulled off the upset win. Their defense actually was pretty solid as well. Now, that was going up against Russell Wilson, so we still see if that holds up against the Bills. But I thought 10 points is crazy. I thought 9, obviously I don't love it as much as 10, but I still think 9 is too many points. I think the Bills win the game. I think the Raiders can surprise people and stay in this one a bit. So I'll take Raiders plus 10, still like it at plus 9. Moving on to my total bet here. Did go 2-0 in totals in week 1, which is surprising because I'm usually not really good at totals, but I got, I think, 2 totals bets again this week. And the first one I'm doing is over 40, minus 105 between the Colts and the Texans. 2 terrible teams, but neither of them are getting 3 points, so I don't really want to bet on a spread on either team. 2 rookie quarterbacks who had very average performances in week 1, so I don't really know what to take away with that, so I'm just going to sit back and root for points. I'm going to try to keep it as easy as possible. Let's root for points. I know neither offense looked good in week 1, but both of them will now be playing a much weaker defense in week 2. Colts defense definitely worse than the Ravens defense for CJ Stroud, and the Texans defense is definitely worse than the Jaguars defense for Anthony Richardson. So I'm going to hope that the rookie quarterbacks show up in this one, score some points. I'll take the over. I have nothing else to say about just this toilet bowl of a game. Now, the next one is me really sticking my money where my mouth is here with the whole underreact thing. And I know I said I wasn't going to forgive the Giants, but at the end of the day, I got to bet with my brain. This is the underreact of the century. I will take the Giants -4, -110 against the Arizona Cardinals. I am both underreacting to the Cardinals covering and giving the Commanders a run for their money. I'm also underreacting to the Giants coming off the worst ass kicking in NFL history, arguably. I already ranted about the Giants game. I won't rant about them anymore, but actually, one thing I didn't mention is that I joined Twitter Space. One of my favorite things to do is go on Twitter Spaces of fans of teams after tough losses in sports. I listened to some Giants Twitter Spaces Monday night. I spoke one that was being hosted by John Jastrzemski. He muted me very quickly, unfortunately. I don't know why. I thought I was going to end my little rant with some hot takes, but I was easing my way into it. But before I could even get to some hot takes, he muted me. So, but that's how I spent my night after the game last night. I thought that was pretty fun. And a lot of Giants fans were completely overreacting to the loss. Was the loss completely ugly? Yes. Was it one of the worst ass kickings of all time? Yes. But it was one game, and that game, everything that could have gone bad in that game went bad. I don't think that's an indication of how the Giants season is going to go. I don't expect them to lose 40-0 again this season. That was from the blocked field goal to the dropped interception fumble thing by Barkley, to the pouring rain, to being booed by your fans, to the offensive line. I don't know what they were doing. It was a terrible display. Now, luckily, they get to take on the worst team in the NFL in the Cardinals. I think they come out hot. I think they bounce back. And I think they calm down their fans a little bit here with a win. So I'll take the Giants -4. The Cardinals, even though they covered against the Commanders, I didn't think they looked great. I thought that was more of an indication of the Commanders being bad, which is kind of why I bet on the Commanders. On the Cardinals. This one, talent-wise, skill-wise, I think the Giants are just the much better team. So I'll take Giants -4 in the underreaction of the century against the Cardinals. And I think that does it with the early afternoon games. Ooh, that was already a late afternoon one, so I was supposed to take a break before that one. But here we are. I will be right back with my picks, the rest of my picks for NFL Week 2. All right, let's keep it moving with the rest of the late afternoon games and then the Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football games for NFL Week 2. We're going to start here with the Rams and the 49ers. And I will take the Rams. I got them at +8.5 in this spot. It has already, I bet this 3-4 hours ago, and it's already down to 8. I don't know if there are. Let me see if I can find out if there's any 8.5s left. Rams. No, it's even down to 7.5 at some places. So if you want to back the Rams, I would do this sooner rather than later. It looks like BetMGM still has an 8.5. Now, if you're going to listen to this Wednesday morning, it might be gone already. That might be even actually where I bet it. Let me see if I can verify. I bet the Rams at 8.5 at BetMGM. So they're the only book that has 8.5. If you're listening to this early Wednesday, try to run to BetMGM to bet 8.5 or try to find an 8.5 somewhere else. I'm going to assume that they will follow suit with the rest of the books and move it down to 8, and it might even get to 7.5 based on some early looks here at some other books. Some offshore books already have it down to 7.5. Like the Rams in this spot. I know the 49ers are one of the most impressive teams in Week 1. I unfortunately bet against them on the Steelers. I think I overthought that game a little bit. But this is a bet on the Rams, because once again, my preseason evaluation was that the Rams were actually going to be a solid football team, and they looked solid in Week 1, so check. Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua fill in the shoes of Cooper Kupp. Both had fantastic games. Unfortunately, for most of my fantasy leagues, I drafted Van Jefferson, but I do have some Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua stock as well in a couple leagues, so I hope they keep it up. Matt Stafford, people forgot that he's actually a really good quarterback, I guess, now that he's especially healthy. Because I remember even in week 1 last year against the Bills, I remember Stafford, like, his arm or elbow didn't look good in week 1 immediately. So now he looks to be fully healthy, completed 24 of 38 passes, 334 yards. This Rams team not going to be a Super Bowl contender, but they're going to be a sneakily good team this year, I think. 8.5, too many points, I think, especially with the Rams at home. 8.5 point spread at home. I will take that, even though I know how good the 49ers looked against the Steelers in week 1. So give me Rams plus 8.5 in that one. Next one, we got Jets, Cowboys. Luckily, I did not bet this before Monday Night Football because the spread was 3.5 in favor of the Cowboys. I didn't really know what way I wanted to go with it at 3.5. Rodgers obviously hurt. That line is now ballooned all the way up to 7.5. So a 4-point swing, including crossing the key number of 7 with the Jets going from Rodgers to Wilson. I think that is an overreaction. I would set the Cowboys as 6.5 point favorites. It is 7.5, so I will take the Jets. Mr. Underreaction is striking again. I will take the Jets plus 7.5. The Zach Wilson-led Jets. Now, I will say, though, let's not forget, let's not get too caught up in the quarterback situation. The New York Jets have a top 3 defense in the NFL. I think they were a top 2 defense last year. Top 3. You want to go 49ers and Eagles 1, 2, then the Jets were 3. So just based on defense alone, I think they can keep this within a touchdown against the Jets. This is also underreacting to the Cowboys win over the Giants. I already talked about it when talking about the Giants, but that game was a weird game that I kind of just want to, unless the Cowboys go on and win 40-0 for several straight weeks now and just dominate everyone, I kind of just want to wipe that game from my memory. Because that was just a weird game. Pouring rain, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for the Giants. I don't want to now bet on the Cowboys based on week 1. So I think the Jets, even though Zach Wilson did not really play great when he came in for the Jets, based on their defense alone, pretty much, I will take the Jets plus 7.5. Also, I bet on that immediately right after it was re-released at the end of Monday Night Football. I don't know if this line's going to shift. Let me see if it's shifted already. No, still at 7.5. So usually if there's going to be any significant swings, they're going to happen quick. It's been probably close to an hour now since the line has been released. It's still at 7.5, so it might just stay there. So I'll take Jets plus 7.5. If it dips below 7.5, if it goes back to like 6.5, what's the total at now? I'd probably like the under because I think the defense is the strength of both teams. 42 is now the total. I would take the under if it dips. If it goes to 6.5, then I would take the under. If it goes to 5.5, then I would take the Cowboys. Is how I'm kind of looking at this Jets-Cowboys game. Because I set the Cowboys as 6.5 point favorites. All right. That is that game. We're going to move on to my second total bet of the game. Total bet of the week. The first one was an over bet. This one I'm going under. I'm going to go Commanders-Broncos under 39. The spread for this game is set at 3.5 points, and that's exactly what I would set the spread at for this game in favor of the Broncos. So because of that, I'm instead going to look to the total, and I'm going to bet the under because defense is the strength of both teams. Even though the Commanders barely scraped by the Cardinals in week 1, their offense was bad. Just 3.8 yards per play, 6th fewest amongst all teams. And now they play a much better Broncos defense at Mile High Stadium. So I don't think their offense is now going to look better than they did in week 1 against the Cardinals. And of course, the Broncos defense is much better than their offense. Russell Wilson looked better than he did last year in week 1. But also that was against a Raiders defense that's supposedly really bad. So what was that? Was that the Raiders defense is better than people expected, or Russell Wilson still maybe sucks? I don't know. So I'll take the under. I'll take the under 39 minus 110 in that one. Dolphins, Patriots, easy one. Don't hesitate for this one. Dolphins -2. I got a -115 because a lot of 2.5s out there. I'll take the flat 2. I got a -115 at FanDuel. Anything under a field goal, I'm hammering the Dolphins. Well, not hammering because everything's going to be one unit play for me, but easy bet. Not high on the Patriots whatsoever. I think they're going to stink this year. I was actually kind of surprised that they actually did fairly decent against the Eagles. They do not have the offensive weapons to keep up with Tua and Tyreek Hill and the rest of the Dolphins offense. So Is this a trap line? No, because trap lines don't exist. Sportsbooks don't set odds, forcing action on one side and hoping that they're right. That's not the way things work. But sometimes, so it's not a trap. It is maybe an obvious bet, but sometimes the obvious bet, the square bet, is a correct bet, and that's what I think is the case here. Dolphins -2, -115. Moving on to Monday night, we got a Monday Night Football doubleheader. And I'm glad that there are 2 games on Monday Night Football because I don't really want to watch a lot of the first one. So I will watch the first one for an hour and then switch over to the second one when it comes on, because the first one is a couple of my least favorite teams in the NFL. It is the Saints against the Panthers. I will take the Saints, though, -3. -110, the Saints team picking up right where they left off, where they're doing pretty well statistically, but they kind of shot themselves in the foot in week 1 against the Titans with some bad, untimely turnovers and penalties. But still, plus 0.7 net yards per play, so a pretty strong performance by them. Bryce Young was terrible in week 1 against the Falcons. The worst rated quarterback by PFF in week 1 was Bryce Young. Just completed 20 of 38 passes, 146 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Things aren't going to get any easier against the Saints. And I think Derek Carr and the Saints offense is going to get better as Derek Carr starts to learn the system a little bit more and gets a little bit more chemistry with his receiver. So I'll take Saints -3, -110 against the Carolina Panthers. And then finally, it is, I guess I'm taking 2 money line upsets of the week if you count the Falcons +106. I'm also going to take the Steelers +110. I'm sorry, I tried to find a big underdog that I liked outright. It's not a good week if you want a big, juicy moneyline underdog because most spreads are 3 or fewer points. And then the few big underdogs, I don't have any desired. Like, I'm not going to take the Rams to completely outright beat the 49ers. What else is a big spread? I'm not going to take the Raiders to outright beat the Bills. And then that's basically the only big underdogs out there. So my rule was that I need at least 1 plus money underdog bet a week. I do have 2. They're not the most sexiest underdogs, but they are what they are. I do like the Steelers +110. Apologies, I just burped into the microphone. Deal with it. Steelers +110 against the Browns. Not overreacting to the Steelers' bad performance against the 49ers. I just think it was a bad game for them. I think the 49ers played extremely good football, and I'm also not going to overreact to the Browns beating the Bengals. Like I said, motto of the week, underreact. Yes, the Browns won pretty handedly, but Deshaun Watson still completed just 55.2% of passes, 154 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. You can't continue to win games with that bad of quarterback play. That's going to come back to haunt them eventually, and maybe the Browns' defense is a top 5 defense, or maybe just Joe Burrow sucks at the start of the season when he doesn't play in the preseason. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I'm more leaning to the latter. So I will take the Steelers money line +110 to wrap up week 2 of the NFL season. So I'll just quickly go ahead and recap all those picks. We got Vikings +7, -110 against the Eagles. Lions -5.5, -108 against the Seahawks. Chargers -3, -110 against the Titans. Jaguars +3, -110 against the Chiefs. Falcons +106 against the Packers. Ravens +3.5, -110 against the Bengals. Bears +3, -110 against the Buccaneers. Raiders +10, -110 against the Bills. Colts, Texans over 40, -105. Giants -4, -110 against the Cardinals. Rams +8.5, -110 against the 49ers. Jets +7.5. Ooh, I didn't put in the juice here. I believe that's just -110 as well. Let me verify. Yes, that is Jets +7.5, -110 against the Cowboys. Commanders, Broncos under 39, -110. Dolphins -2, -115 against the Patriots. Saints -3, -110 against the Panthers. And Steelers +110 on the money line to upset the Cleveland Browns. Week 2 for best bets. Ravens +3.5. Colts, Texans over 40. Giants -4. Dolphins -2. And Steelers +2. Once again, my 5 best bets: Ravens, Colts, Texans over, Giants, Dolphins, and Steelers. My teaser of the week, we're going with an underdog teaser. We're going to take the Falcons from +1.5 up to +7.5, and we're taking the Texans +7 or +1.5 to +7.5. So same line for both teams. You cross both the key numbers of 3 and 7. So the Falcons +7.5 against the Packers, Texans +7.5 against the Colts. That's my teaser of the week. Survivor pool. I have two different options. I reserve the right to switch at any point. Right now, I think I'm just going to take what should be an easy win, even though I'm on the Raiders +9. I'm going to take the Bills in Survivor, I think. Not a lot of really easy games for the Bills this season if you look at the Bills' schedule. Moving forward, you got to take them this week against the Raiders. You could take them next week on the road against the Commanders. After that, a couple games against the Patriots, you could take them, and that's just about it. At home to the Broncos, maybe. But Bills have a relatively tough schedule this year, so really only limited options to take them. Or I might just take the Giants against the Cardinals. Because the Giants, another team, not a lot of situations I want to take the Giants. Right now I have the Bills locked in. I might switch that to the Giants. I don't think they're going to lose to the Cardinals. I'm going to underreact to that week 1 game. So right now, Bills. If I don't go Bills, I'm going to go Giants. I've entered 3 entries into the Survivor pool for Joe Ostrowski. That's the max entries you can do for a Survivor pool. 1 was my entry, which last week I took the Ravens. My girlfriend wanted her own entry. She took the Vikings. She lost, unfortunately. And then we are doing a joint one where we are both making the decision. Last week we took Saints. That one, don't know, haven't talked to her what she wants to do for week 2. But for mine where I get the sole power of it, I'm going to take the Bills or the Giants. Haven't decided. Whatever one I don't go with, I'll try to convince my girlfriend to make that our joint pick. But her Vikings pick lost. I feel bad. I'll probably let her make the final call. So there you have it. This has been the NFL Week 2 episode of the Bacon Bets podcast. Let's keep the ball rolling. I keep meaning to mention at the start of the episode and never do, but please subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. This is, I don't ask for money for this content. I don't want you to send me tips if you win bets. All I ask you is to subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a comment on the video with your best bets, and then rate and review the audio version of the podcast. That helps us out a great deal, and I would appreciate it. Best of luck with all your bets this week. Gambler bless. I'll be back next week for NFL Week 3. This has been the Road to 272 Bets. I'll talk to you later.